Hey, no family, it's Pastor Matt with your devotional thought for today. In Luke chapter 18, we see the following words written for us. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and treated others with contempt. Two men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed thus: God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. See, I think verse 9 tells us pretty much all we need to know. That these people that Jesus is speaking to here, they trust in themselves as if they're righteous, and they treat other people with contempt. So let's pause, because we often think about this from the perspective of, man, these Pharisees are the worst. They're the worst of the worst, and they think they're the best of the best. And so we sit there oftentimes in condemnation of others. We often may be prone to treat others with contempt that we think are worse than we are. And when we do that, do we not realize that we are more like the Pharisees than we are like the tax collector here, who is justified by his faith in the Lord? You see, that's the reality here. The one who thinks himself righteous, the one who believes himself to be good and in a good place before the Lord, is the one who goes to hell ultimately, who walks away from their time in prayer, and they're unchanged by it. They're not benefited in their prayer in any way except looking good in front of others who are watching them. And they make themselves feel good, so therefore they feel good walking away from there. But the reality is, there's nothing good internal taking place there. And for us, brothers and sisters, may we take this to heart. May we recognize this clear warning from our Savior that the means to be justified is not by justifying ourselves, but in the opposite, of actually taking a genuine look at ourselves and having a posture of humility that is the natural outgrowth of being understanding of our own sins. When we see how sinful we are, how wicked we are, how we actually have no righteousness within ourselves whatsoever, then we can come before the Lord and receive His grace and mercy. But when we come touting how good we believe ourselves to be, then we will never be justified. Because no matter how hard we try to justify ourselves, we never can. Remember, God is perfect. God is holy. He is completely transcendent. And when He is perfect, there's nothing we can do to attain that perfection. There's nothing in ourselves. Once we have marred the image of God in us, which is what we do when we sin, we can't recoup that in our own strength. We can't do anything to get that back. But that's where God intervenes. And God sent His Son Jesus to die in our place so that we could be reconciled to this perfect and holy God, so that we could truly be justified. Not trying to justify ourselves, but in the true justification that comes by faith alone in the righteousness of Jesus. As I was thinking through the devotional thought for today, I really wanted to share this with you because I think so often we can fall into these ideas of being better than other people, that, well, I don't do these things, so I'm in a good place. And the reality is that disposition is actually the antithesis of the disposition that our God receives. Our God will respond favorably to us when we humble ourselves and admit that we actually have no righteousness in ourselves, and when we rely fully upon the righteousness of God revealed through Jesus Christ alone. And so it's when we throw ourselves at the mercy of the court, we throw ourselves at the mercy of our great God, and we do just as this tax collector did. He beat his breast. He beat himself in the chest, saying, I'm not worthy. He can't even face his head upward because he realizes he is utterly unworthy to come before God in prayer. And yet, he pleads for the mercy of God and admits that he is a sinner. And that is the means by which we, all of us, any of us, can actually be justified. When we admit that we are broken sinners in need of God's great grace.